Hey everyone, welcome back to Ad. Before I get to today's video, I'd just like to once again say thanks to everyone for watching the last one. With that being said, this time I'm focusing entirely on Ultraman, and some of its side products, adaptations, and co-productions. Since Ultra Q and the first Ultraman show more than 54 years ago, Ultraman has had a number of different stories to tell through different media, including TV shows, movies, manga, and video games. With such a spread, it's easy for some of these products to receive less attention than others, whether it's because of age, the status of it, or a general lack of attention from the greater franchise. Specifically, we'll be discussing in this video Ultraman Towards the Future, Ultraman the Ultimate Hero, Ultraman Neos, Ultraman The Adventure Begins or USA, and the Zearth duology. That is not to say that these are specifically underrated or anything, I just never see much talk of them and would like to get others to check them out if possible. I'm hoping to give brief enough summaries to introduce plenty of details about the shows without completely giving away their plots. Afterwards, I'll break things down into the good, the bad, and the ultra, the stuff that I think really makes the topic memorable, whether it's positive or negative. I'll also be including proper ratings at the very end. Getting straight into it, we'll begin with the 1991 Australian co-produced Ultraman Towards the Future, otherwise known as Ultraman Great. It stars Dory Krause as Jack Shindo, who came into contact and subsequently merged with Great during a manned mission to Mars, carried out by Shindo and his partner Stanley going wrong, due to the primary enemy of the series, Godus, attacking and destroying their shuttle to Earth, killing Stanley and leaving Shindo stranded. Godus ends up escaping, and Shindo forms a partnership with Great after he realizes the Godus escaped to Earth and he'd need a host to protect the planet, which leads to Shindo being able to return home. Once he's returned, he joins up with the Yuma team, with his love interest Gene Echo, Captain Arthur Grant, and Lloyd, Charles, and Kim, who round out the main cast. For the first half of the show, our primary antagonist is the Godus. It both creates monsters that Ultraman fights, and fights Ultraman itself in the first and sixth episodes. The second half of the show deals more with creations from the environment, reflecting an environmentally conscious theme that flows into the finale, where Earth itself is fighting against the team in a doomsday scenario. So, all that said, let's talk about the good of the show first. I would say the cast is pretty charming, honestly. They all have their quirks and personalities, and it flows well together. The environment's plotline is pretty cheesy, mostly due to the dialogue, but it fits with the story overall pretty well. The fight scenes could be better, but they also could be a lot worse, as we'll get into later. The Yuma team supports themselves and each other pretty well. They feel like an actual team, and they have a few episodes that really show that off very nicely. I'd actually say the show as a whole is decently funny, decently touching. I didn't expect to get much out of it besides just some generic 90s superhero type bullshit. And now we're on to the bad. The monster designs are lame at best and straight up ew at worst. Some of the effects are pretty weak even by 90s standards, and the endgame plot, some details of it feel like some Da Vinci Code bullshit, if I'm being honest. And finally, we have the Ultra. Arthur is responsibly antagonistic as a captain. He isn't ignorant, he's just cautious. He knows to listen when he has to, but is distant at first, and it makes sense. Charles probably gets the most development. You get to see him be clever, funny, gentle, brokenhearted, etc., etc. His standalone episode is probably the best in the series.
Do you think this will do any good?
Yeah, it'd make me feel a whole lot better.
Well, I'm really pleased for you, Lloyd, but, how long do you think we'll be around to enjoy it?
Arthur, take cover! Hold your positions! It's time I had a crack at this thing. If you want this base, you'll have to take me first.
Then me. We're fighting a phantom.
A phantom didn't wreck 10 years' work on the gun emplacements.
Then why didn't it keep attacking?
It's playing with us.
Maybe it's got other plans.
Well, it doesn't think much of us.
Oh, no!
What, Charlie?
What? I left my lunch on the stove.
Great does not have a normal rise. He has a weird fusion shift with Shindo and then just kind of grows. Just as well, his device is just, a little necklace that he holds and activates by concentrating. Shindo and Great have some communication, and involve Jack being unhappy about his role keeping secrets and putting his life in danger. He wants to do the right thing, wishes he could do it his way though. It makes him interesting, it makes him human, even when he feels almost alien in the way he talks and thinks about the Gudis. Dude could be kind of robotic sometimes. Ultimately, I don't have much to say negative about the show. It has a charm that keeps you gripped even if the writing doesn't always. It's certainly a product of its time, but I don't think that holds it back when plenty of it has aged well. It made me laugh, it made me reflect a bit, and it hit a certain amount of 90s nostalgia I didn't think anything besides like Power Rangers or the Digimon dub could hit. Next up, we have the 1993 American co-production known as Ultraman the Ultimate Hero, or Ultraman Powered. Leading the show is Kane Kosugi as Kenichi Kai. It's worth noting that Kosugi would in the following year go on to play Jiraiya, aka Ninja Black, in Ninja Sentai Kaku Ranger. Kai and Powered become partners after Powered's mission to defeat the alien Baltons goes awry when the battle shifts to planet Earth. Unlike Great, the Ultimate Hero has Kai effectively saving Powered after he enters Powered's travel sphere and agrees to be his host, though we hear little from Powered's afterwards until the finale. Otherwise, our main characters are Kai, Captain Edlin, Rick Sanders, Teresa Beck, and Julie Young, and a generic Monster of the Week storyline up until the endgame, focusing on defeating the alien Baltons for good. On the good of the show, we have the Western monster versions that are pretty interesting from a compare-contrast standpoint, like Gomora and Zeton. The VTOLs that the team uses are probably one of the coolest in all of Ultra. Captain Edlin goes out into the danger to mix results, but it's nice how open and proactive he is about protecting his team. The episodic plots are pretty strong, especially one focusing on a colorblind pilot helping the team, and also gives Kai a few memorable lines himself compared to the rest of the show. For the bad, we have the Western monster versions that can be a bit weak, or feel like they deviate a little too much from the original by making them look too edgy or something. Specifically, Vanilla and Red King, and also Red Queen. It feels like there isn't really much to say about the characters, honestly. Kai is basically a generic hero protagonist number 5. Edlin is caution but gentle. That's about it. Beck and Young just kind of are there. They care for the team, are loyal to their job. They probably are the calmest of the whole cast, and that's kind of all I can really say. For the Ultra, there's that the fights really suck. Like, straight up are bad. The wiki claims it's because the producers were worried about damaging the high-cost suits, which led to lots of hugging and pushes and special effects beams instead of actual fights, which actually kind of hurt my enjoyment for the show. The one hair character I haven't mentioned is Sanders, who somehow steals the show, much to my own amazement. He's absolutely the comedic relief, yet also the one with the most heart. He has a weird, goofy stepdad-like feel, yet he's also the one most raring to go out and save people. In the end, he's also the one to decide to fire upon the final boss of the show, risking everyone's safety, yet pointing out it's the only chance they have to win without Ultraman. He's not amazingly complex, but he has a presence that nicely reflects upon the typical team member who isn't an Ultra but won't stop fighting. Ultraman the Ultimate Hero is not a great show, but it isn't a bad one either. It's wholesome Ultra content that probably should have made more with the source it was given, but its plots and some of the tense moments give it a different air to other Ultra shows I think makes it worth trying out. The last show to be discussed is also the only fully Japanese production. The year 2000's Ultraman Neos. Like the Ultimate Hero, Neos stars another Toku hero, Genki Kagura, who is played by Chun Takatsuki, who later played Kamen Rider Tiger in Kamen Rider Ryuki. The difference between the two characters are beyond astronomical. Keeping with the Savior merges, Neos and Kagura become partners after Kagura is jettisoned away from a satellite he and a crew were working on after an asteroid shower had destroyed it, leaving him the only survivor. Information we obtained through the opening that has really weirdly cheery music for how kind of fucked up the scene is. Kagura's teammates at the organization at heart include Captain Minato, Sub-Captain Uematsu, Hino, Hayami, and Ayumi, as well as Secretary Fujiwara, who does things. The good of Neos is that each character more or less gets an episode of development, However, I feel like episodes they get also focus on how they fit into the team, instead of just making them grow or giving us insight into their personalities, which, if I'm being honest, I feel like everyone in the cast is kind of one note. Kagura is a solid host, minus an issue or two. He feels like a kid in some ways, which makes his hopeful attitude and gentle demeanor feel right at home, and it helps emphasize his belief in doing what's right. The Alien Zombie plotline is a nice overarching story that manages to pace itself well and fit nicely throughout the alternating episodes of Monster of the Week and actual plot. The show has a sort of kaiju horror feel for a couple episodes where we don't even see the cast until about 1/3 of the way in, focusing instead on the monster setting itself up to attack, or someone causing its appearance, or just showing parts of it to build tension. Maybe showing it messing around with bystanders, what have you. It's a nice vibe that really refreshes things. The unbalanced zone, which houses dark matter, is what causes the monsters to appear, which effectively involves mutating different things into the monsters. It's weirdly nice to have such a natural creation process in order to use entirely new monsters instead of just them being random aliens only or something to that effect. For the bad, there's that Kagura is probably one of the most obvious hosts ever. He's very, oh man, I happened to walk out from this dangerous place with no injuries. Crazy how that happens. Oh, did you guys see Neos? Isn't he cool? Which, it isn't the most uncommon thing in Ultra as a whole, but something about Kagura makes it hard to not question how he didn't get caught until the end of the show, because he really does come across like a shitty liar. Neos is given no personality, full stop. It's kind of like Show and Ultraman Victory in that there's clearly a separation of personalities. The problem is, it's hard to justify it when he's clearly supposed to have some kind of personality based on how 721 talks about him. And lastly, the Ultra. The fights are absolutely fantastic. Neos fights like a madman or a dumbass. It varies. My favorite is definitely him versus the monster known as King Dinos. This is the only of the 3 shows to feature more than one Ultra. 721, who is an absolute enigma. He can fight human-sized, he copies people's identities, leading to a lot of confusion for those who know said identities. He shows up for about half the episodes to maybe assist Neos or just be vague and weird. I don't know what to make of him, but his design is an interesting shift from the original 7 design, and personally far more preferable than 7X. The resolution to the Alien Zombie storyline, which is also the endgame arc, is probably some of the best Ultra content I've ever seen. It wraps things up nicely, asks poignant questions about the value of life, what it means to give yours up, and about survival. It gives us the moments that truly do show Kagura as a good host. Neos is a damn solid show. It is not perfect, it had me asking a lot of questions, but I still felt content in the end. It probably had the strongest overall story, the best fights, and gave me plenty to think about. So for ratings, let's go back and go down the line again. Towards the Future, solid acting, decently funny, alright action, and surprisingly lovable characters. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. It's a good show, and it's aged well. The Ultimate Hero. The fights are weak, but the designs are interesting. The characters could have been better, but the writing worked. Overall, it's like a 5 out of 10. Very middle of the road, but still worth a try. And finally, Ultraman Neos. Good fights, good characters, good plot, so-so writing, but also 721. It's definitely an 8 out of 10. It made the most of being a limited series, and I'd love to see Kagura and Neos properly reappear one of these days. All things said and done, I actually really enjoyed these shows, almost as much as I did the new Gen Hero shows. And in the case of Towards the Future and Neos, even more so in some ways. I'd recommend giving them a try, as you honestly might find them a lot more enjoyable than you realize. They definitely capture an age of television that we just don't have anymore. So, next up, we have the movies, which are honestly a mixed bag. None of them are specifically bad or anything, well, let's just talk about them and we'll see if you can gather how I feel. First things first, we have Ultraman The Adventure Begins, otherwise known as Ultraman USA, made in collaboration with Hanna-Barbera of Scooby-Doo and other classic cartoon fame. And boy, does it show. I don't know how to talk about The Adventure Begins besides saying watching it perpetually feels like I'm 2 steps away from a G.I. Joe or Green Lantern spinoff at all times. 3 hotshot pilots crash after a strange light knocks their planes from the sky. But little do they know, instead of killing them, it granted them incredible powers. With help from the mysterious Walter Freeman, they form the Ultra Force, defenders of Earth using their super advanced fighters and spectacular Ultraman powers. And also their bases in Mount Everest, because patriotism. I swear they do more flying than actually Ultramaning in this, but when they do Ultra shit, it's actually decently cool, because Ultraman definitely lends itself well to cartoons. As far as plot goes overall, the movie is effectively split into 4 sections that kind of feel like episodes of a cartoon. The first one focuses on the team coming together, and then the last 3 are kind of like different Monster of the Week sections. The first one is a 2-pronged fight against Green Shocks and Garubalade, and then they have a weird bout with the military to defend a monster creature toddler thing named Zune. And then the final big boss fight is against this gremlin creature called King Myra. All in all, you've just got some real Saturday morning cartoon writing vibes going on. Also, I mentioned that there are 3 pilots who become Ultras, but the whole thing is pretty much focused on Scott. Chuck and Beth are basically there to sell toys and make sure Scott doesn't get himself killed. So let's talk about the good. It has really solid cartoon effects. The Ultra designs are actually pretty good, and it's just a hard nostalgia trip as far as classic cartoons go. For the bad, there's that Chuck and Beth should have been given more focus. There's plenty of unanswered questions, like who the fuck Walter is. And the robot sidekicks that they have in the movie just kind of are there and serve not much of a purpose. As far as the Ultra goes, there's that during the fight with Zune, Chuck kind of looks like a stepdad when he picks up the weird little creature and then sends it to another planet like he's dropping it off at daycare. And that's it for the Ultra. I really don't have much to say about this movie as far as memorable shit goes. Next up, we have Ultraman Zearth. Ultraman Zearth is a parody Ultra released in '96 as part of the Ultraman Wonderful World, which celebrated the 30th anniversary of the original Ultraman, and in that spirit, completely goes batshit as hard as possible. Masaharu Sekiguchi stars as Katsuto Asahi, the human form of Ultraman Zearth, a really, really, really red Ultra who does not like being dirty, transforms with an electric toothbrush, and is a big ol' wimp. I'd also like to point out that the Wikipedia entry mentions that at least he tries his best. And boy, does he. There really isn't much to say for a plot. Alien tries to destroy the planet, and the story focuses on Katsuto getting over his fears in order to save the world. I watched the dub by Ocean Group, and it fits surprisingly well, most likely because of the parody nature of the film, meaning it's fine to goof off and quality is less of a fear. It's a relatively funny movie and goes pretty over the top with some of the things it does, so instead of including a good, bad, and ultra section, I'm just going to play some clips and leave you questioning what the fuck is going on.
Air take off!
Yes, sir! Hey guys, where are we going? Get real, you're not invited. Is it okay to do a little cleaning?
Go away! Get out!
Yes, sir.
Handprints match. Thank you.
Rubber baby buggy bumpers!
Swatch. 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 Swatch.
Okay, I'll put him down. As you can see, I'm not a violent man. Most of the time, anyway. How about a facial, You look a little pale, son. Nice tan. Yeah.
I'm going to do it. I can do it. Toru, Toru, Toru. I've got it. Yeah.
Ultraman Zearth 2 Superhuman Big Battle Light and Shadow is the sequel to the first Zearth. It's somehow more tame, but also weirder than its predecessor. It's like Karate Kid, but the Cobra Kai are children who bully a grown man and are helping program a fighting robot. It's actually kind of amazing. I don't know how, considering it's just as parody and comedic and goofy and everything, but it manages to tell a relatively sweet story about being brave and not giving up, which, although isn't anything new, it's surprisingly touching when applied to parody. Starting with the good, we have that the acting is better and matches the marginally more serious tone, giving characters some nice dimension. Zearth vs. Ultraman Shadow fights are actually pretty damn solid, and Shadow's design also is pretty solid in and of itself, even though he's basically just negative Zearth. But his color scheme actually really works well for the design. For the bad, there's this whole mind control shit going on with the little Cobra Kai school, and it's a little much, I guess. There's also questions to be asked and answers that are nowhere to be found, but I'm willing to let it slide considering it's a goofy-ass movie, and it just works, I guess. For the Ultra, I would say primarily there's just that the cameos are a really nice touch that remind you actual loved ones of the film. Alright, now that's said and done, let's get to ratings. USA, I give a 4 out of 10. It's a generic-ass cartoon movie that really should have leaned harder on the Ultraman stuff and not being discount G.I. Joe. Zearth 1, I give a 6 out of 10. Decently funny, outrageously weird, and that's all I can say about that. Zearth 2, 7 out of 10. Has better writing, better action, better everything than the first one. It's a good Ultra movie in general, and I'd love for them to bring back my boy Zearth. And there we have it. I've gone through 3 Ultra shows, and now these 3 Ultra movies. In the end, I can't say whether or not these movies ultimately deserve more attention, but I still think they're worth checking out. You honestly might find that you like them or enjoy them a lot more than I did, and I think they provide an interesting show for how different countries can adapt products differently. Let me know in the comments if you've watched them before or if you've gone and watched them after and what you thought. I'd love to know how you guys feel. I'd like to also shout out the Apollo Dub Archive for hosting the Zearth dubs. I really don't think I'd found these movies otherwise. That aside, my next video will be on what show various users across Twitter and Reddit consider the most underrated writer. So please look forward to me getting off my ass to watch 50 episodes of something I haven't even touched yet. If you like this video, consider commenting, liking, subscribing, and please check me out on social media to keep up with what I'm doing next. I'm hoping to have the next video out by the end of July at the very latest, so please look forward to it, and have a nice day, guys.